Durante años he sido nerd de cine, el tipo de película, el tipo del nuevo día, y hoy soy el inter del Daily Planet para el estreno y las exclusivas de Superman llegando a la pantalla grande. Y aquí estamos en el espacio de la icónica Lois Lane, y mire, aquí un recorrido que solo los nerds de cine vamos a apreciar, no vamos a hacer copia, no hay que buscar café, pero hay que asombrarse. Mira, este es el escritorio de Clark Kent, que tiene muchas cosas nuevas que hacer en su aventura en la pantalla grande. Hablamos con James Gunn y con el elenco para el estreno de Superman. Juanma Fernandez from the película. It is truly a pleasure to get to talk to you about your Superman. And I don't want to spoil anything, but the theme of choice really jumped out at me, and the choice that he makes and the journey that he goes through, and how you put us in his shoes in a way that we really haven't seen before. But making that choice as a writer and as a filmmaker, was that never not scary, or was it always exciting? Because it's very different, and that's what makes it interesting.
I think everything along this entire process has been incredibly exciting. Everything along this process has also been very daunting and scary. I don't think I've ever been so stressed out or worked so hard, I know I haven't, on any movie I've ever made. So that's been a part of the process for me. But what I do is I just try to let go of whatever those feelings are and just focus on the creative part of things, and I'm able to do that pretty well. And I wanted to make a Superman that was as real as possible, really. I mean, it was like, what if Superman was real? What would his feelings be? What would his flaws be? What would his fears be? Where would he be especially good? Where would he not be so good? And so looking at that and knowing I wanted to make a story that was a personal journey about his change in life, a way that he looks at himself and then changes the way he looks at himself and then changes it again. That's personal, in addition to all the pyrotechnics and action sequences and flying and monsters and everything else. That's kind of, that balance is what makes it fun for me.
I mean, it's sort of a mind-blowing to get to ask you directly, because I think sort of the movie positions us differently than the others, in the sense that it's from the inside out. You're very smart about playing with our perception of what we think Superman is, and then flipping it around. So given that, because I don't want to elaborate to not ruin it, but how is sort of dealing with the actor that's playing Superman? Because I'm sure he comes with his own expectations of what taking on the role is. Was that your first exercise of sort of flipping expectations regarding of what the role, how you deal with the role?
I think working with David was really good. David just has a lot of questions. He needs to understand everything, but he doesn't come in with any preconceived notions of what Superman was supposed to be.
Okay.
But I think it took him a little bit to understand exactly what the script was, where the character was, and all of that stuff. And he comes every day with 1,000 questions. Him and Rachel both. They're both very question people.
You roll your eyes. Are you used to that in your process with actors? Or,
no. They're the most. Kurt Russell.
Inquisitive.
Kurt Russell was very questiony.
Okay.
But I'm kind of used to Chris Pratt and John Cena, who just kind of do whatever I say. Don't ask me any questions. But I've come to really appreciate that in those guys. They can do it their way, or they can do it my way, and maybe that's better. But when they do it my way and they understand what it is, they're always at their best.
It's always more exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me if you've been able to sort of reconcile sort of your first connection to what the character is, as opposed to what you've done. If you feel differently about Superman, if you remember what your first impression of him was, and now that you've gone through this creative journey as an artist, if you feel different about the character.
I feel differently about the character than when I was first connected to Superman, which was when I was very young, like 3 or 4 years old. I started reading comic books. That's where I learned to read, was on comic books. And I fell in love with Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and all those characters. And I think that today the biggest thing has changed is I realize what he means to so many people around the world. And one of the most rewarding parts of this experience so far, and I'm just at the beginning of it, is seeing all of the people that come up to me, crying basically, that this is what they always thought of Superman as, and how happy they are to see that reflected in the way on the big screen.
Okay, so what do you think is the most punk rock thing you've done as a director in this movie?
I think the most punk rock thing I've done is coming at this movie from a raw and emotional place. I think that that's a scary thing to do. My characters are usually known for being very edgy, and everything's edgy. And Superman is only edgy because he's not. He's edgy because he's so earnest. He's edgy because he's old-fashioned and Pollyanna. And that's really what is going against the grain. And I think that me taking on this movie has had to take on some of those same attributes myself.
Okay. So I think I have an inkling from watching the monkey bots on screen of what you're going to say when I ask you this question. But are you able, since you were announced that you were taking on the DC universe and the position that you're in, there's been a lot of noise around what you're doing, what you might do, what you might not do. Do you care? Because there's that scene where Clark sort of falters and he does care about what people say online, or are you able to tune it all out and just eyes on the prize and what you're doing and what the position sort of brings to you?
I care in that I can't say that I'm a perfect human and things don't affect me. I don't care at all in that it has nothing to do with what choices I make. I am very well able to make choices for the DCU and characters and stories without being overly influenced by all the different chitter chatter that's going on around me. Because the truth is, it all kind of equals out. You know, there's people saying one thing, but there's always people, take the Trunks, for instance, right? People are all up in arms about, is there Trunks or is there not Trunks? Probably about 65% of the people wanted the Trunks, 35 people didn't. But at the end of the day, there's so many voices. It's just like, well, we got to make the choice for the movie. What's better, Trunks or no Trunks, you know? And I was willing to go either way.
Okay.
So I'm pretty able to let it go.
Have you watched the movie with an audience?
I've watched many cuts with audiences. So I'll show my director and writer friends, Drew Goddard and Jason Reitman and Damon Lindelof, and I'll get their what they think of the film. So I've watched it with that. I've watched it with test screenings, but I have not watched the final cut of the film with an audience, and I'm not going to be able to do that until the premiere.
You're in for a treat. So it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you about it. Right?